Frostbite didn't roar onto the battlefield in World War II. It crept in quietly, stealing sensation before soldiers ever realized they were in danger. A numb toe, a stiff finger, skin that turned pale and waxy without pain. By the time pain returned, tissue was already dead. Across the Eastern Front and during the Battle of the Bulge, cold injuries sidelined entire formations. In some sectors, frostbite casualties rivaled or even exceeded combat wounds. Armies entered winter with rifles and artillery, but they were unprepared for the slow, grinding attrition of cold. What separated the men who stayed in the fight from those evacuated wasn't thicker uniforms or better boots. It was field knowledge. Practical, unglamorous techniques passed quietly from one soldier to another. One of the most overlooked involved something issued to every soldier, never designed as cold weather gear at all. A simple bar of soap. If you value real history and hard lessons earned under pressure, take a moment now to like, share, comment and subscribe to The Hard Past. This channel exists to preserve the uncomfortable truths and forgotten knowledge that textbooks usually skip. With that said, let's get straight into the fieldcraft that helped men keep their feet when the temperature tried to take them. Why cold injuries overwhelmed World War II armies despite massive logistics is a story of moisture, not temperature. Frostbite thrives where cold and dampness meet. Soldiers marched hard, sweated into wool socks, and then stopped. Snow melted inside boots. Sweat soaked downward. Leather stiffened and cracked. Wool absorbed everything. Once movement stopped, moisture froze. Blood flow collapsed. Skin froze from the inside out. Manuals warned about frostbite, but, supply lines rarely delivered enough dry socks, reliable fires, or replacement boots. Soldiers needed a way to control moisture when nothing else was available. Why dryness mattered more than warmth became, painfully clear in winter combat. Warmth could not be maintained continuously. Dryness could be managed. Dry skin retains heat better, resists freezing longer, and preserves circulation. Soldiers learned through trial and loss that keeping feet dry delayed frostbite far more effectively than adding layers alone. This realization gave rise to one of the most quietly effective tricks of the war. How the soap method worked was simple, but, really precise. Soldiers rubbed a dry bar of standard-issue soap directly onto clean, dry feet before putting on their socks. No water, no lather. The soap formed a thin, alkaline barrier on the skin. This barrier altered the way sweat behaved, reducing how easily moisture spread and soaked into fabric. It also, interestingly, slightly tightened skin pores, limiting excessive sweating during those long marches. The result was not warmth, but controlled moisture. Feet stayed drier for longer, and that delay often meant the difference between intact tissue and permanent injury. Why soap outperformed grease and oils surprised many soldiers at first. Some troops used animal fats, petroleum jelly, or oils to repel moisture. While these sometimes helped, they created new problems. Oils trapped dirt, softened skin too much, stiffened socks, and in extreme cold could partially freeze, creating abrasive layers inside boots. Soap, applied dry, left no greasy residue. It did not soak into socks or leather. It attracted no grit. It stayed where it was applied and did its job quietly. How soap helped prevent secondary injuries became clear over time. Frostbite rarely arrived alone. Cracked skin invited infection. Damp, damaged feet became breeding grounds for bacteria and fungi. Soap's alkaline nature discouraged bacterial growth and helped keep skin intact longer under harsh conditions. Soldiers who maintained strict foot care routines reported fewer breakdowns, fewer infections, and greater endurance in prolonged cold operations. This wasn't comfort, it was damage control. How soldiers applied the method correctly mattered. They focused on toes, heels, and the spaces between toes where moisture collected fastest. Socks went on immediately after application to preserve the barrier. When feet became wet later, the soap layer slowed saturation long enough to matter. Whenever possible, soldiers repeated the process daily, especially before night operations or static positions where circulation dropped and frostbite risk spiked. What field reports revealed about effectiveness confirmed the practice. Medical officers on the Eastern Front documented lower frostbite rates among units that enforced rigorous foot discipline, including soap application. Finnish winter warfare doctrine emphasized dryness above all else, and, well, soap became a standard part of cold weather routines. Soldiers stopped treating it as a hygiene item and began treating it as survival equipment. Why this lesson still matters today is honestly obvious to anyone who spends time in cold environments. The laws of physics haven't changed. Moisture still accelerates heat loss. Frostbite still begins with dampness. Modern hikers, hunters, military personnel, and preparedness-minded civilians can apply the same principle. Insulation matters, but dryness matters more. Technology helps, but discipline saves lives. World War II soldiers didn't worry about comfort or appearance. They worried about keeping their toes and fingers attached. That kind of knowledge deserves to be remembered. Preserving it isn't nostalgia. It's respect for experience paid for, really, in pain and loss. If you value real history and practical lessons drawn straight from the past, subscribe to The Hard Past, share this video, and keep these stories alive. Hard knowledge fades fast when it's forgotten, and once it's gone, it has to be relearned the hard way all over again.